Hi, welcome to Community Connections, brought to you by Arizona Care Hospice. I'm Sandy Dyke. I am your host for today and the Administrator and VP of Operations for Arizona Care Hospice. Today we're going to be meeting with a couple guests who play a very integral part in our community, both throughout the Phoenix area as well as, for some of them, possibly satellite help as well for those of you that may not be in the immediate area for this podcast. And so today, as you know, we're hospice. We go into the patient's homes. We're throughout Phoenix. We're throughout Payson and the Prescott area. The two individuals we're meeting with today are two folks that I enjoy thoroughly partnering with to provide the greater resources to the patients that we do. And so you may be asking, well, who are we talking to today? So I'd like to introduce them to you, and then we'll kind of start talking about what we're going to be discussing today. So first of all, welcome to you both. I appreciate you joining us. Yeah. And today we're going to have a conversation because between the three of us, we offer a very valuable resource, I feel, to the aging community as well as their families. And so, Kerri Ann, you come to us. You are with All About You Senior Resources.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are? And we'll go from there.
Well, I'm Kerri Ann, and I'm with All About You. And our company's just a little bit different. So we kind of look at ourselves as care managers. I'm a board certified patient healthcare advocate, which I'm very proud of, as well as a certified placement agent. So instead of just looking at where does somebody need to go, we get calls from all over the valley from people just asking questions. Maybe their loved one's in the hospital and they need to go to rehab and they don't know which rehab to choose. I love those calls because I want people to see us as a resource for the questions that they have about anything that has to do with seniors. So we just go into the home wherever they live or wherever they want to meet, and we do assessments to see what are the needs that they have. Some don't want to place, some are not ready, some are not in that place, and they just need resources like yours or home care or whatever that may be. And so we help them with those resources.
So I want to back up because you stated some pretty loaded words right in the beginning, the certifications that you have. Tell us a little bit about that and what that means for our listeners, and how do they know who they should work with when they have questions, and how those certifications make you that right person to connect with.
Well, for what I do, you really don't need any certifications. You really don't need any licensing. You really don't need any insurance. You really don't need anything. I hold myself accountable to a different set of standards because the reason why I got into this is from losing my dad. And it was devastating to our family. There was a lot of things that we didn't know. And so going into the senior industry, I really saw that it's important to the families to hold yourself as accountable as you can, to have the highest level of standards that you can achieve, to really serve them best. I can't serve my families best if I'm not continually learning and continually looking at what areas can myself or my team be educated, go that extra step to be certified, to have liability insurance. The patient healthcare advocate side, that board certification, that test was really challenging for me. There's only 1,000 of us in the United States. And when I talk about being an advocate, a lot of people throw that word around, and I take it very seriously. So for me to truly be an advocate for my seniors and families, I wanted to take that extra step and say, I did the test. I did that extra step. So I really, truly can be an advocate. And on the placement end, it's kind of a rogue group of folks, but it's just one of those things that's always a challenge to be able to, Passers is a big part of, that's an organization that holds us to best practices. NPRA is national. I'm proud to be a part of both of those organizations. I'm proud to follow their best practices. I was one of the first 100 to take that certification test, which there's very few things that hold placement agents and those things us accountable. And so my team and I want to be held accountable in many other ways. And so that's why we do what we do.
Awesome. Awesome. And for the listeners, I've known Kerri Ann for many, many years. And when she applies herself and engages, and she's saying she's taking the steps necessary to stand out and do the due diligence that she needs to provide for those that she's helping, I can back that up 100+%. So I just want to kind of piggyback onto that, knowing you as an individual. Thank you. We're going to come back to you with some more questions. Steve, welcome.
Hi.
I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah.
Steve Dabbs with Care Funding Solutions. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about Care Funding and yourself.
And what I do, yes. So I started Care Funding Solutions about 10 years ago, officially. And what I saw is a need for all the different funding methods to kind of come to one place. And for instance, VA aid and attendance benefits, ALTCS benefits, and private pay. How to coordinate that. In that light, people are concerned about running out of money, so they don't get the care that they should for fear that, hey, well, if I don't qualify for one of these other benefits, then I'm going to run out of money.
Right.
And so I help them create a roadmap, if you will, so that they can kind of see the future based on a spend rate, and they can then know that they can afford it and move forward with it. So that's what Care Funding Solutions was about. And then in that, I'm a VA accredited claims agent, accredited by the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is a big deal. VA scrutinizes the agents pretty heavily and continues to do so. So to have that is, in my opinion, a big deal. Okay.
That's awesome.
I'm also a certified Medicaid planner, and pretty proud of that. My wife is too, by the way. We work together.
Good team there.
Yeah. We call it the CMP Power Team is what we call ourselves. So she does a lot of the case work. Once I open up a case, and she keeps it on track. It's a very, very has deadlines built into it. So you got to stay on track, or you'll get denied. Probably 50% of claims are denied because you didn't meet a deadline.
I hear that often.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so she does a great job meeting those deadlines and watching and say, hey, we gotta submit today or else, so on. So she does a great job with that. So at any rate, that is important. And then also I'm an accredited investment fiduciary.
You just mentioned a whole bunch of fancy words there for our listeners. Tell us what that means to be a fiduciary, or what that entails in your scope of practice.
Well, it's an accredited investment fiduciary, and what it entails is acting in the client's best interest, and that's important. And last year when I have to annually do continuing education to maintain all my different designations, and I had to do the one for the accredited investment fiduciary, and the gentleman speaking on ethics, which is part of that requirement. He made a comment. He said, you're not a fiduciary with just part of what you do. It's everything you do.
All encompassing.
So when I heard that loud and clear, and so basically if I'm doing a VA claim, I'm still a fiduciary. If I'm doing a plan for somebody to qualify for ALTCS, I'm a fiduciary. Okay. So, and I don't know this for absolute fact, but I'm pretty sure that I'm the only accredited agent in Arizona that's also a CMP, Certified Medicaid Planner, and an accredited investment fiduciary. As far as I know, I am the only one.
So you are mixing and mingling and looking at all certain pieces to one's being financially to help them make the best decisions they can going forward. My question to you both is, and that's the reason why I really wanted to get us together today to talk, is because you guys work so closely and you complement each other so closely when it comes to working together for for our community. How does our community members know when to reach out to either one of you? Like, should they be reaching out to somebody to discuss finances prior to say placement needs, or vice versa? Or what do you recommend as far as that goes? Either one of you can answer that part, because
great question.
There's a lot of pieces to somebody's 40 years of life.
I'll say it varies from case to case.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing, Kerri Ann will send a client my way, and sometimes I send right back over to her.
Sure.
And I go, listen, you need to figure out where you're going to go before I can do my work. Or there'll be a veteran. This comes up quite often. There'll be a veteran. They can qualify for VA benefits, but let's say their income is fairly low, a couple thousand a month. Well, the VA of their surviving spouse is only going to add about $1,300 additional. That's only $3,300. What's the average rate again in Maricopa County for assisted living?
Around that and plus with care, for
with
sure.
Care, yeah, 42, 40. So they're gonna. So then we look at the assets and we go, you're gonna run out of money at some point. So I'll call Kerri and go, Kerri Ann, I think they can private pay, okay, no doubt, for a period of time, which brings a whole, and you can explain this, whole different level of quality places to go to that accept ALTCS. Okay. So I go, you might want to direct them that way so that when they do run out of money, because they're going to.
Sure.
Okay. They're going to. Then they know they can roll right on to ALTCS. And so that's her. Then I, send it back over to her to kind of dial that in.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have that conversation with everybody, even if someone, like the example of the rehab people, I follow up to see how rehab is going, checking in with them. And then I do talk to people and say, you know what, I'm going to send you some informational videos, because I would rather work with people years before they need placement or even before they need me, because at the end of the day, everything in life boils down to money. And if people are not educated correctly, then unfortunately, I get a lot of people that will come my way and they were not educated. They went a different route. And I have one gentleman that always sticks in my mind when I talk about this. And he lived a big, amazing life, had property, him and his wife, they lived a big, wonderful life. And she got dementia and had to go into care. She went into a care home. It was private pay only. She was there for 3.5 years. When it came to the point where he needed information about ALTCS and all these other things, came to find that he got the wrong information and was told that he could only go onto ALTCS if he basically went broke. And he did.
I hear that
broke
so much in the community.
And it's really tough for me to come into that situation to help him, because I can't unwind anything. All I can do is help him find a better place for his wife that is appropriate for ALTCS. And it's just heartbreaking, because here's this gentleman who's lovingly taking care of his wife and lives this big, wonderful life. And he's standing in front of me with nothing for him.
Right.
No finances, no homes, no nothing. So I talk to people about that no matter what their situation is. I want them to understand that people live way beyond their means, because people are living longer. I want them to know about the VA benefit. I want them to get with Steve to at least start having conversations about planning. In life, we plan for our kids to go to college, for weddings, for whatever. But as soon as it gets to talking about planning for senior stuff, people are like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to have anything to do with that because it may happen. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, I'm going to talk about losing 20 pounds.
I heard this one time, you bring up wedding. People spend more time planning their wedding than they do planning.
Yeah. And it's frustrating to see. And I know you've both seen it. I see it from a hospice standpoint. And like you had said, Steve, people plan for all these other major things in their life, but when it comes to those very important times when they have to provide and they have to make sure they're planning ahead, that it's just not there a lot of the times, and it's playing catch up.
And be with the right people.
Right.
I know enough to be dangerous about a lot of things, but that's why I have the vetted, wonderful resources in my toolbox, because when somebody needs to know about hospice, I'm like, you need to talk to Sandy.
Right.
When somebody needs to know about planning, VA, ALTCS, whatever, I know enough to explain to them.
Right.
But I want them to have the professionals that are in that to be in their toolbox to help them through that time and have that person as a resource.
So let me ask you this, Kerri Ann. So what would be your advice? And I'm speaking strictly from the services that you provide. When is the right time to reach out to All About You? What should people be looking for or listening for to know, okay, we need to start looking ahead or talking to somebody?
Well, my dream
In the perfect world,
my dream would be that I would just go meet with a bunch of people who are living their best senior lives, and we talk about something that's going to happen way down the road, where we're creating a relationship and where we're making a plan, and they feel good about everything that they've got planned for their future. We've done the research. I know what they like. Their family does. And then they just live their life. And as they need things, we peek into each other's lives to bring those resources to them.
and that's a perfect world.
That's a perfect world.
So,
in a non-perfect
In the real world.
yeah. And I tell people this all the time. In the real world, anytime that somebody is feeling that their senior loved one is facing some challenges, I would love to start a relationship with them. Because that just may mean that we need to look at some new doctors, or we need to talk about doing some med reconciliation. Not with me, that's not what I do, but I have nurses that do that. Or maybe they need a little in-home care. Maybe they need transportation. I don't know what that is, but that is how I would like to engage, because I'm about building relationships with people. And I want to be able to help them see all the resources we have now in Arizona, and they choose from that, as well as being properly educated about those resources, like hospice, which so many people are not educated correctly about,
right.
or any of those things. But I mean, it also boils down to, someone goes to the hospital and the doctor says, you can't go home. That's a placement situation, and there's lots of different placement options. And again, like Steve said, I look at the total picture. I'm not looking at what we need right now only. I'm looking at the future. So when we do placement or when we provide resources, we're making sure that those resources or that placement is financially sustainable all the way through the end of their life. I don't want people moving around or changing too many things. So there's a whole variety of.
So let me just jump off of that, because you mentioned not having people change a lot of things. I've heard, and I don't know, Steve, you can kind of jump in on this, is I always keep hearing, if you have $2,000 or more, you're not going to qualify for this or that. And then people start trying to spend down and all that. I'm like, I know there's something behind that. So can you speak to that a little bit? Or I know it's a very loaded question.
Well, it's not easy to answer that simply, but can I mention one of my big pet peeves is, is first of all, the state of Arizona will give misinformation out, which makes me crazy.
Okay.
And they've done it to me on more than one occasion, because for instance, I'll be opening a new case up, and one of the questions they'll ask me, have they gifted any money? And I go, yeah, actually they gave away $20,000 per my instruction. And I heard from the caseworker at ALTCS, you ready? That's illegal. And I was on the phone. I took a breath, and I said, ma'am, that is not illegal. And I don't appreciate you saying that.
Okay.
I said, well, you're saying that to other people too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have said it to me. And it's wrong. A vast majority of them, in case one of you are watching this, I think the vast majority are good.
Right.
But there are a handful that are not, and they get this misinformation. Then
look how many years it's taken you to learn everything.
Oh my
you've
gosh!
Learned. Like I can see that people are trained to the level of what they need to know. There's so much more about it that they don't know, that they really don't need to know, because they are doing the intakes of those people that have below 2,000 that aren't, that don't have any planning that necessarily can happen.
Yeah.
Well, and as a fiduciary, you're there, like you said earlier, to protect that and advocate basically for that whole person. Right. And so it's definitely going to be in your best interest to really do and call on what's needed to, again, somebody could have limited funds, somebody could have lots of funds.
Right. Yeah.
But it's your job and what you do to make sure you act in the best interest of those funds, whatever the amounts are.
Well, and a perfect example, we work on these kind of cases all the time as a couple. If we have a couple, we have one that has high care needs. And a lot of it, I mean, we're seeing cognitive disorders, and that seems to be the one that kind of divides, the couple in that way. And so if all of the funds are going towards that one that needs all the care, what happens to the other? How do they live? How do they survive? In 10 years when they need care, then where's that money?
Right.
So when you look at a couple, and planning is essential. It's like that's any couple I have, that's the first thing is like they need to talk to Steve. They need to really, my goal when someone moves or when we are working with them is that they know the lay of the land of everything they need. They have all the right players in place to help them, and they know how this whole thing is going to roll out. They're not just going into it blind, and especially with a placement and where that's concerned.
Okay.
Wherever they go, I want to make sure that that place is good for them now, in the near future, far future, and is financially sustainable. And that's where, I mean, I don't think that there's one case that we don't discuss.
Okay.
Multiple times, usually. Yeah. For everything virtually that's not financially related,
Sure.
I'm on the phone with Kerri Ann because she's a great go-to
Right.
and very knowledgeable in the whole arena outside of the financial side.
Right. Well, and I know Kerri Ann's very ingrained in the greater community. I just saw today you had put something on social media that you guys are now part of the Tempe Chamber of Commerce and the Gilbert. And I mean, I know you're very involved with Gilbert, Queen Creek. And so can you talk a little bit just on what else do you provide to our community members as far as resources go?
A big part of it is support and education. I mean, that I feel that I want All About You, and I want for Laura and I and anybody that joins our team to be committed to the community and to be committed to educating no matter what the end result is. I mean, I did my business review and realized that half of the business that I do is pro bono work, and that's the way I want it because I have a different space that I come through when I do what I do, because I feel like if you have the knowledge, you should be there for people no matter what the end result is.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as community based, I mean, Laura and I have talked, you and I have talked about it, he and I have talked about it, is that I don't look for referrals or resources in the medical or in the senior community. What I want is how it's coming to us is we commit to the communities, we volunteer, we commit our dollars, we commit our time. I was a part of Gilbert leadership. Laura is going to apply for Tempe leadership. I'm involved in Queen Creek and the East Valley. Anything that I can do and that we can do to be involved in the community and get in front of people who don't understand this industry and educate them and support them and advocate for them, because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And
things are always changing.
It is. And for us that is in it every day, I mean, it's changing for us every day.
Right.
Every single thing that has to do with senior healthcare, medical, or whatever is changing daily, and it's our jobs to keep up with it. And I'm the first one that if I don't know something and someone needs help with it, I'm going to find the right resource for them. I don't have anybody that works with us work with anybody that I wouldn't have my own mom work with. And my mom is very healthy and wonderful, and she's not going anywhere because she'll kill me. And
We love your mom.
We love Franny. My hope, and it's kind of happening, is that with the things that we're doing in the community and people we help, that if anybody hears any senior that's struggling or any family member is talking about having to take time off work because they need to help a senior loved one and it's stressing them out or whatever that may be, that they will say, you know what, you need to call Kerri Ann. And that is the biggest honor that I could ever receive in everything that I do every day. It makes it worth it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know we're getting close to the time here that we are together, but I wanted to touch on one last topic, and that is our veterans. And so, obviously as hospice, we help everybody, and a lot of our patients are veterans. And so I know a lot of what you do, and you too, Steve, especially, serve our veteran population. So when it comes to our veterans, what advice can we give them as far as they have kind of their own special set of needs as far as community resources and benefits and all that. So is there anything we can share on that?
Well, I wish that I could maybe do a better job in an area.
Okay.
Because it seems like I can hold seminars and I can have a group of, veterans in that seminar. And most of them come in, what I say, on their own steam, meaning they're not using walkers and they're not, they're there to learn about what's available. And I can talk to them that today, and to do some of the financial work, they now have a 3-year look back. So when you can transfer assets, but then you have to wait 3 years. Well, oh, by the way, people in the room, you're not needing care now. So this is the time to do the planning, instead of wait till you call Kerri Ann, then Kerri Ann calls me and I go, oh, by the way, we just lost 3 years.
Yeah.
And so now you're over-resourced, but maybe not by a lot, but they are. And now we can't qualify because we have too many assets.
Right.
And VA has less ways to spend those assets, if you will.
Okay.
Whereas ALTCS, there's some tools that they're available to ALTCS that are now not available to veterans, because they made some changes about 3.5 years ago. Okay. And so it really behooves them, in my opinion, if they'll just do a little planning now. Yeah. Then that 3 years, when they do need the care,
right,
then they can qualify.
Planning. That's the biggest.
That's
Again,
the key.
I'm apparently not doing a good job.
I mean, none of us wake up, I don't think, any day and say, oh, I want to go, plan my finances for 10 years from now, or I want to go, seek out where some placement options might be, or whatever. And I get that. Yeah. I don't wake up wanting to do that necessarily myself, but it's something, yes, Steve, that you mentioned. It's like we need to tune into that, because we're all going to be there.
I got to do a better job explaining someone.
Who's better to help a veteran than a veteran?
I'm a veteran.
You are a veteran.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Definitely. Kerri Ann, do you want to add anything from a veteran standpoint? Any words of advice, or did Steve pretty much sum it all up?
He summed it up. Yeah. Okay. But it's just the thing that I run into when it comes to the veterans is the spouses. Because many times they've been told that there's not a lot of spouse benefits, that when I bring this up, they're like, no, we were told. And I'm like, nope, let's back this up and untell you. Let's really find out that. So this is one of the very few benefits that the spouses can dig into. And so that's the only thing that I usually come up against, is if the veteran is passed, they're like, no, there's nothing. Well, yeah, there is. So,
okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. I want to thank you both for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure speaking with you guys. I know we've been meaning to connect for a while now. But thank you, everybody, to our listeners for joining us today on Community Connections. In case you want to reach out to either Steve or Kerri Ann, could you guys share, just kind of refresh, name of your business, contact info, and then our listeners can reach out if needed?
Ladies first.
Kerri Ann, ladies first.
There you go. So, Kerri Ann with All About You, and we're on Facebook, which I love because we do a lot of great things on there, and we have a lot of people that come to us. Otherwise, they can just go to allaboutyouplacement.com, and our information is all on there, and we'd just love to chat with folks.
Awesome. And do you have a phone number that you want to share?
480-498-2277.
Perfect.
All right. Well,
Mr. Dabbs.
Good. Thank you. CareFundingSolution.com is the website. And you can also go to VeteransPension.com. I have that website as well. So those two. And then, of course, you can always call me at 480-967-8477 is my main phone number. Okay?
Awesome. You guys are great resources. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you to our listeners. Again, this is Community Connection. I am Sandy, your host. If you have not already subscribed and please don't forget to do so. Also, we would love if you would share this podcast as well with others. Again, part of our conversations today is education and getting that word out. So I look forward to our future guests, and I look forward to you joining us again for our next podcast. Have a great day.